All right, so I have Mike here with me. We just got finished watching the full leaked story for the upcoming Marvel's Wolverine, developed by Insomniac Games. I have a few thoughts on what we watched. Mike, what was your reaction?
After seeing the full video we watched, I thought it's looking pretty good. I like how it's pretty dark and mature, and seeing the character development of of Wolverine and his relationships with the other characters as well. I like seeing those moments of backstories that happen throughout the flashbacks, and Jean as well. I do like the storyline that's going on with Sinister,
Hmm.
as long as with all the mutants. So I think it's looking pretty good. I really do enjoy that dark, but yet real serious. Not something that's kind of like bubbly and fun.
Right.
So that's what I really like about it.
I um I liked it. I was a bit taken aback with the flashbacks, mainly because of the continuity of it, if you know what I mean. Like, because it goes
Mhm.
in and out of his backstory, and it's
Mhm.
kind of confusing to follow as far as like what events took place and or like when the events took place and in what order and all that. So I was a bit confused on that because
I get what you mean there because there was a moment I forgot which part. I know it was towards the end where I was a bit confused because I couldn't tell if it was a backstory or if it was happening now. Yeah, I think it was around this area. I was a bit confused at first. 'Cause I was like, I didn't know when they actually transitioned.
Well, yeah, and another thing too, I don't want to give any specific details of what happens in the story because I don't want them to take this video down,
Mhm.
and so I'm not gonna play anything in the video where I'm just seeking through it. I have the audio of the video muted. I'm not gonna play it. I'm just seeking through it. So we're not gonna like go heavy into anything that actually happened. Going back to what I was saying, the events are told out of order when it comes to Wolverine's backstory. There's a again going back to his backstory. There's a heavy emphasis on Sinister, his whole motivation and whatnot. That was another issue that I had because it's a bit cliche. As a character, he's not that interesting as far as like what his ultimate goal is, and
Mhm.
his ultimate goal is basically, he just wants to be immortal, which is, that's, that's not really all that interesting. It's very like standard like comic book villain type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping his motivation would be a bit more interesting than that. Now, how he goes about achieving this goal is interesting, and that goes into Wolverine's involvement in the story as well as Jean Grey. And so I did like that aspect of it. And another thing I liked is that it starts out as a basically a revenge story, but then it pivots into being something more, and then we start to see the humanity of Wolverine as a character, which
Mhm.
is he's not a monster, but he's a character that has a lot of guilt, and that's like quintessential Wolverine,
Mhm.
but Jean Grey, they inserted Jean Grey into the story to basically humanize Logan and make him more of a relatable character, and it gives him greater purpose in the story. I did like the fact that because I was looking at some comments about this on online of people who have other people who have seen it, and one person was saying like, why do we need Jean Grey in a Wolverine game? It's like that's it was one of the dumbest fucking comments that I've read about this. And Jean Grey is incredibly important to the story in this. She's not a throwaway character. She's not a part of Wolverine's backstory because he meets her later, but she's important to his development as a character and what actually happens in the story itself. Like, she's important to the plot, so she's not she's a side character, but she's not. a throwaway. She's more or less of a second lead, basically.
Yeah, she's not in the background at all.
Yeah. She's in the foreground. So I do like that that aspect of the story as well. We do have some characters that did seem throwaway in here, like Sabretooth. I honestly I didn't really care for anything they did with Sabretooth. Because they were talking about how he was in the cave with Wolverine, and I'm like, huh? I was a bit confused at that. I was like, what do you mean they were in a cave together?
Yeah, I didn't really go in much into that.
Yeah, and I always thought that maybe it's just in the movies or something, but I always thought that Sabretooth and Wolverine were brothers, but here it makes them seem like they were just friends or something, or maybe they weren't even friends, but that they were just two guys who got together, were living in the woods trying to survive, and I was like, huh? I'm not, I really don't understand that. And so, some of the members of the Task Force X or whatever, I was a bit confused as to like exactly what Insomniac was going for with the writing there. How do you feel about that? Because Task Force, they got some of the other characters like Mystique, Sabretooth, Omega Red, and Sinister. Well, I guess Sinister's technically not a part of the team, but you know what I mean. And Wolverine was a part of the team at one point, and that was confusing within of itself. That's what I was saying, with the backstory and whatnot. I didn't understand like when was he part of the team? When did certain events happen? Like the game just randomly goes into different points in his backstory, and it makes it a bit difficult to keep up with as far as the chronological order of events. So, but yeah, how did you feel about like the members of the Task Force X? Like, do you think everyone got appropriate screen time? Some of them aren't really like. Did you feel like they were developed properly, or how do you feel about that?
I mean, I'll say I enjoy some of them in there, but I don't feel like all of them got developed properly.
Right.
I mean, I understand some time constraints. The only character who I think probably got developed sort of properly was what was her name again?
Mystique?
Not Mystique. I forgot her name. What was it?
We're not talking about Jean Grey, are we?
No, not Jean Grey. The Asian woman.
Oh, Lady Deathstrike, right?
Yeah, I felt hers was developed fine.
Yeah, I guess I would have to agree. My problem though with Lady Deathstrike in here is that her motivation, she's not really much different from Sinister because they kind of have the same goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She did have more of a purpose though in the story than Sabretooth and the other characters. I do agree with you, but only up to a certain point. Because, like I said, her motivation wasn't really that deep either, which is the problem. I guess one of the main critiques would be the way they portray the villains. They could have more depth to them. They really do seem like throwaways. Like Omega Red, he just seemed like a stock villain.
Yeah.
Like I don't really understand. They honestly could have left him out.
Yeah, he wasn't that important.
Right, yeah. So I don't know, like and we don't know if this is going to be the final version. I assume it is because they already have the whole fucking game mapped out from the leaks and everything. So I doubt this is really going to change. But another thing that I don't know how I really feel about it is the character Walter or Sasquatch, and I don't want to say too much, but yeah, what do you think about him? Because I don't really want to say too much regarding his purpose in the story and everything, but it doesn't involve Wolverine at the beginning. It's part of why he goes on a mission for revenge. So how do you like what do you think about that?
It didn't bother. I mean, it felt like something I've always seen before, but it does help humanize Wolverine.
Right.
But it was something, another thing I felt that was pretty small, small and short.
One thing that's strange though is like the game. It starts when Wolverine gets his adamantium and whatnot
Yeah.
inserted into his body. But as far as like how he got his name and everything, like how he got the name Logan and all that, I thought that was kind of like lazy a little
Oh
bit.
yeah,
Yeah, I was like,
yeah.
what the
You're
fuck?
right.
I was like, they could have done a better job with that, you know.
Yeah, I do agree with you there.
Yeah, like that just seemed random and just I don't really get like why they did that. I mean, it's not a big thing, but it's just a little strange to me. I like the involvement of some of the other mutants. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of X-Men characters in here, but they could throw some cameos in here. There's some opportunities that they could throw some of the some of the other characters from the continuity in here just as cameos. Or do you think they should stay away from that because they do have the other X-Men games that are coming out after this that are planned. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Maybe one or two just to show off,
Right.
but in my opinion, wouldn't really be that important if they're making other games on the other characters.
Uh-huh.
That's how I really feel. All in all, I guess I'd say best to leave them out if they're really not going to do nothing with
Right.
them.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I honestly feel.
One, I want to say two brief things about the end of the game, and I don't want to. I'm afraid to even like seek that far back. They they tease a major. The first thing I'll talk about is they tease a major villain at the end of the game. Should I say who it is?
You can go ahead. I'm sure people wouldn't mind.
Yeah. It's Apocalypse. So they tease Apocalypse at the end of the game. We don't know what they're going to do with Apocalypse, but they just tease like Apocalypse is coming or whatever, and so he'll likely be the one, probably the major villain for the first X-Men game. I don't know how I feel about that because Apocalypse he's one of the Omega level mutants. He's one of the most powerful mutants in the X-Men continuity, and I don't know if you really want to, use a villain of that level too early. It feels like they're rushing things a bit, if you know what I mean.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Mm, I don't know. I feel like I don't feel like it would bother me, but I don't know. I mean, it really depends. I mean, if they're gonna continue making others, it would be hard to top that. Then, like you're saying,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure like what their plans are, or even if they have a plan right now for the X-Men games. But yeah, I don't know. Like teasing a villain like Apocalypse this early and they haven't even introduced the X-Men yet.
Yeah,
The only two X-Men characters that we have in this game is Wolverine and Jean Grey. We don't have like Storm or Cyclops or anything like that. Not throughout this entire presentation, like Professor X wasn't even mentioned.
yeah, I noticed that too.
Yes, and the way they leave it is strange because it doesn't really set up an X-Men game. I'm wondering how the X-Men characters are going to be introduced. Now, another thing is towards the end, there's a character that's shown here in the artwork because Wolverine. I'm not going to say it because it's kind of a spoiler. There's a slide in here towards the end when they're rebuilding and whatnot, and Jean Grey is with another character on screen. I'm not sure if you caught it.
No, I didn't. I must
Um,
have missed that.
yeah, it's towards the end. I really don't want to show too much here. The character is wearing shades, and the shades are colored red. So I think it's Cyclops.
Oh wait, yeah, Cyclops. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember from the show we watched.
right. I think that's who that was in the scene. Now Cyclops is not mentioned in this narration here, but I think that's who that was with Jean. Of course, as we know, Jean and Cyclops, they're basically a romantic pair in virtually every major X-Men continuity, including like the movies, the cartoon show, the animated series, and everything. They become a couple or whatever. Now in here, as also was shown here and in some of the other leaks, Jean Grey and Wolverine, they have their own relationship. So I'm wondering how that's gonna, play out. Now, Wolverine's a character that's, he's best written on his own. Some people don't like the whole love story between Wolverine and Jean Grey and other continuities. Here, I thought they handled it well because she met Logan first, but when Cyclops comes into the picture, I think she's gonna have a shift since Logan goes on his own path. I think that's how they're going to handle it for the upcoming X-Men games. So I think that Logan and Jean Grey being romantically involved, I think it's only going to be it's going to be exclusive to this game and this game's story. I don't think it's going to be a thing in the other X-Men games. So.
And after watching this, it didn't feel like it was stopping any action or like overtaking the main story. So
No,
yeah.
they weaved her, not to cut you off, but they weaved her in.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, they weaved her in naturally into the story. So
Yeah.
In the whole romance, it's actually a part of his motivation and different choices that he makes later in the story. Is because of her. They, it has a purpose in the story. They didn't just throw it in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll let you go first. If we had to list like a top 3 things that you liked about this story, what would they be?
I do. One of the things I like, I think that was pretty obvious. I like Logan's growth throughout the story.
Hmm.
I'd say the second thing I like is I like how dark they really went with the mutants and
Hmm.
everything happening to them.
Right.
Third thing I'd say I liked as well is I did like I would say I liked the locations that they were traveling to as well,
Hmm.
just like the city or and sometimes out to like the desolate woods, and then you're going to a manor, even if it's flashbacks or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I really want to see how that is in game, especially the city too. I know that will look absolutely beautiful. So yeah, those are my top 3 things.
Okay. So for me, top 3 things. I like how Wolverine is portrayed in this. This is the character Wolverine, so it's not like they fucked up his character or anything. Felt like Wolverine. He's a character that starts out like very angry and vengeful, but then he's softened by his relationship with Jean, and then by the end he's a character that's filled with a lot of guilt and whatnot. So his character has a natural evolution, and he feels like Wolverine all the way through. So I do like his character development in this. Would be the first thing. I think they did a great job there. I also like what they did with Jean Grey. She's naturally inserted into the story. Everything with her feels like it belongs there, and it's necessary to the story because it is. They do have some really good moments with Jean as far as the action goes, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes because we already know that she's playable in some of the missions. Following up on what you said, I like some of the locations that they have in here, like Madripoor and all that. I think is going to be exciting to see in the game. So I will agree with you on there on that front. What about things you didn't like? Things that, or at least things that you didn't really care for that much?
I didn't notice it at first until you said it.
Hmm.
I do gotta agree with you that the villains really kind of don't seem fleshed out.
Right.
It kind of just seems like they're there just to fill in the story a bit,
Yeah.
and they really don't have that much depth in them. And sometimes at points it kind of just feels silly, like the moments with Omega and Sabretooth.
Hmm.
Um,
I think they were the weakest for sure.
yeah, absolutely. Other than that, I don't think there was much else I really didn't like, to be honest.
How do you feel about what they did with Mystique regarding not the backstory of her involvement with the task force, but the whole thing with her spouse? Because
I don't think it.
it's strange. That was a strange choice to me, and I'm going to explain why.
Mhm.
So Mystique in the comics, she's from my understanding, she's basically portrayed to be bisexual. So she goes both ways in some of the storylines. But if you know anything about X-Men regarding Mystique, then you would know that she's the mother of Nightcrawler.
I
So
remember that.
yeah, so and Nightcrawler is one of the most popular X-Men characters. So I'm wondering, is there more to Mystique's backstory that's not explained? Are we going to see Nightcrawler in one of the X-Men games? If so, is there going to be a time jump, to where she ends up, pregnant with Nightcrawler, and then, we see Nightcrawler later, maybe as like a teenager or something like that? You think,
Maybe.
yeah,
I mean, I think she. Even though I'm not huge on X Men, but from what I know, she's always one of the main standout characters. So maybe they'll show her more love and attention to detail
mhm.
for that. But you don't know because sometimes they'll just leave stuff out and you just don't know why. It kind of makes you scratch your head. So it could be a possibility, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious with that. And like I said, I guess that's my other major criticism aside from the ways the villains are portrayed. Because even the villains that do have a lot of development, like Sinister, Mystique, and Deathstrike, they're more interesting than Omega Red and Sabretooth, but they're not. Their motivations and whatnot weren't really strong. They were pretty cliche, if anything. But aside from that, this game doesn't really set anything up for the X-Men game,
Hmm.
so, which is kind of surprising. I don't know exactly what they intend to do or how they intend to transition from this game to the X-Men game, because it doesn't really do anything. It mentions Apocalypse at the end, and that's it. It doesn't mention any other character. So I'm wondering exactly how they're gonna transition into that. The only way I see it working is with some type of time skip. Jean Grey would have to join the X-Men, and then later, like, they encounter Logan, and then he joins and whatnot. That's the only way I could see it working.
I don't know if the leaks ever said it. Is this like fully completed? Is this like pretty much
What,
all of it?
the story?
Yeah, like
Yeah, this is
this.
this is the whole story.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
this
yeah,
this is the whole.
yeah. So I guess they're not gonna make no changes or anything. So yeah, I guess that's it then. Never mind.
They might do like another tease at the end, but I don't see that happening. And they didn't mention any of the other like X-Men villains, like Magneto or anything. He's not mentioned at all. He's like the quintessential like X-Men villain, and he's not mentioned. So I don't know what how they're gonna go about introducing the other characters. But yeah, overall, it was pretty good. I think it's going to turn out to be a good game. Some people have issues with it, but there wasn't anything major that I had like, oh, this is going to be bad, or oh, this is garbage. Some parts of it were weak. Some things they could have done a better job with. The flashbacks and whatnot, the chronological order, the villains, and some of that stuff was a bit weak. But they do have some really good stuff in here. They have some really good ideas. Again, with Jean Grey, like what they did with her. I like the character development with Logan. I like the scale and scope of what they're going for. I think that's going to be the strongest element of the story. So yeah, overall, it's pretty good. Mike, you want to give it like a final, any final thoughts or anything?
Yeah, I think it will be a solid game for sure.
Yeah,
And remembering those gameplay videos we watch, yeah, I think that even confirms it more so for me because it looked really good.
yeah, and they do have people on YouTube that have uploaded the gameplay and shit. The same even the same video that we watched. Now the people that are going around that downloaded the fucking code and are just playing like an early ass unfinished version of the game that are uploading gameplay footage, y'all need to stop doing that shit, man. Like for real.
Hmm.
That's ridiculous. If anything, that could damage the reputation of the game, at least until they do another official review. Then I guess
Yeah.
it wouldn't really matter much at that point. Yeah, that's our thoughts on the story for Marvel's Wolverine. I don't. If I have this, if I do upload this, I'm probably not going to have it up indefinitely. Like I said, they're going around. They got some lawyer or whatever that's going around, copyright striking videos and shit. Like I don't need that heat on my channel. I'll probably have it up very very briefly, and that'll be it.